Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Calgary's podcast on Canada's Podcast Network. Joining me today is Margarita de Guzman, who is Managing Director of Circle CRM Group in Calgary. Thanks for joining us today, Margarita.
Thanks for having me.
Well, tell me a little bit about yourself and what your company does.
I am an archaeologist. So our company is a group of consulting archaeologists. We go in before development happens. Archaeology is government regulated, so we work mainly across BC and Alberta. We go out and dig holes and look for artifacts and I guess tell the stories about them and protect them if they're worthy of protection.
Okay, so how did you get started in this?
Oh, it's a bit of a long story. I do have a degree in economics. I was raised in a Catholic conservative family, but in my last year of my economics degree, I discovered an archaeological field school through the University of British Columbia, and I went on that, and it changed my life. I really love the joy of discovery. But it took quite a long time for me to become an archaeologist full time. I did a bunch of stuff in between, LIVIN, I like to call it. But then there came a point where I wanted more for myself. I didn't want to live check to check, and I wanted to reach a higher potential. So I started this company in 2010, and we've just been going ever since.
Okay, so tell me how this works. Do you go in and dig when there's proposed developments for certain sites? Is that the nature of it?
Correct. So the government regulations state that if your development has potential to impact archaeology, then you have to get that footprint assessed. So we do a lot of work in advance of forestry and oil and gas. So if you're building a pipeline, for example, you'll have typically a 20 or 30 meter right of way. We'll find our way to that particular right of way and we'll dig shovel tests. So we'll just take a shovel and dig out some dirt about 30 centimeters deep typically. And we usually space them out every now and again to see if there's anything there. Yeah, we screen the dirt and hopefully we find some artifacts inside.
What have you found over the years? What kind of things?
In Western Canada, we will typically find the remnants of making stone tools. So Indigenous people used to make stone tools. They still do every now and again. And so when you break a stone, the way it breaks, it portrays particular characteristics. So we can tell that it was culturally modified. So that's typically what we'll find. And sometimes if we're lucky, we'll find actual arrowheads or projectile points, as we call them, or other types of tools. And every now and again, we'll find bone. We found some pottery recently. I will find fire broken rock, which is common. And we also find like old structures because they're all our historic period sites here, sites that speak to early European contact. And so we found quite a few of those things throughout Western Canada, dating anywhere from 100 years to 13,000 years ago.
Wow. You ever find any dinosaur bones?
I have not. We leave that to the paleontologists. But I do have a fossil that I found on a river once when I was working with a paleontologist. He let me keep it. It's my pride and joy. It's sitting on a shelf over there. I like to tell people about it.
Oh, super. Now, I understand do you have a program in place to support more women in the industry?
Well, it is one of my purposes in life is to help support women being a female archaeologist. There are a growing amount of female archaeologists in our industry, but over the years, I have found that a lot of them leave for various reasons. So we are launching what we call the Fairfield Foundation. We will establish a group of directors across Canada to help provide resources, create networking opportunities, have events, have mentorship programs, things like that for women, like anywhere, any stage in their career to join us and, help increase that confidence and longevity for their career.
Why do you think there has been sort of a departure of females from that industry in the past?
I think the number one reason is that we are away from home a lot. Our crews are typically away for 10 to 14 days at a time. And so it is difficult on relationships, and certainly difficult if you have a young family, a new family, or even, if you have teenage kids. So it becomes a choice for some people. If they don't have the support network that they need, it becomes very difficult. Childcare obviously is a big deal. And for some people, they would just rather, it gets to a point where they are tired of being away from home so much, and they would want to spend more time with their families. Yeah.
Do you think this day and age that the field of archaeology is considered to be cool? Like, it's been, we've seen movies about it, and a lot of documentaries, et cetera, out there. What's your thoughts on that, and how people are look at archaeology these days?
Yeah, well, obviously I think it's cool. I think the media has definitely helped us with Indiana Jones and those types of movies.
Yeah.
I think that everybody loves finding stuff. For me, it's been that joy of discovery. And I'm sure anyone can attest to that. If they're walking along the street and you find something on the ground, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I think it will continue to grow. And that's part of why we also like to do some public speaking and stuff like that, so that we can help share our findings with the public, and also so they can see why we do what we do, and why it's important to uncover these artifacts and tell the stories that they tell.
Yeah. So during your career, what would you say is the most fascinating site that you've been involved in?
Oh man, I've worked in England and Austria and Italy. I would have a couple of answers. One is a site that we worked on in the Yukon, because it ended up being 13,000 years old. And that's fascinating to me because as someone that I did my education in BC. I left BC because I didn't want to work in the forest. And now most of my work is in the forest, and I'm fascinated by archaeological theory in the forest, which sounds really nerdy. But also in 2011 and 2012, I started a public archaeology program on the island of St. Vincent in the Caribbean. They were building an international airport, and there were no regulations to mitigate the archaeology, but the CEO of the airport corporation was a more forward thinking. So he allowed us to come. It was a public, not-for-profit venture. We advertised in newspapers and on the internet, come and dig for a week, pay some fees, and we'll take you on an excursion also. And we found quite a few burials. Some of them had grave goods, not gold or what you see on TV, but you could tell they were specific burials, and that was really interesting. And we were able to make an impact on the country's interpretation of their history as well. So that was really cool. And we were pretty much on the beach every day.
Yeah, the bonus, right? What about the most challenging site or challenging dig that you've had?
Well, the St. Vincent excavations were very challenging because the soils were so hard. We had to put water on it and use a pick, or basically dental picks, to take away the dirt because it was so compact. Here in Alberta, what's most difficult for us is actually access, because we mainly work in remote places. So sometimes that involves pretty long quad rides or Argo rides, and the Argos break or the ATVs break. And there's lots of bugs, and maybe there's a bear. For me, those are more challenging than the actual digging.
Oh, okay, super then. Why is it important that we promote and protect, say, our heritage and things like what you discover, whether it's fossils to tools to bones?
Well, I am a big believer in that you can't move forward without learning from the past. all of the technological advancements we have, your iPhone, your iPad, your, even just the internet, it all started from a place where everybody learned from their mistakes and moved forward. So that's important, but I also think it's important to, be proud of your heritage, and especially in Canada, where outside of European contact, the heritage is an Indigenous heritage. And in today's world, there is an increasing importance on that. With the Truth and Reconciliation, we abide by the call to action number 92 for companies to do more, basically. So we also have an Indigenous inclusion strategy where we are being intentional about increasing opportunities for Indigenous people to be in archaeology, participate in archaeology, contribute to archaeology, or work alongside us to assist us to make sure we're interpreting and doing things right. And we're also intentionally increasing our Indigenous spend. So like every year I send out client gifts, and I'm looking for Indigenous owners to help economic advancement for these communities that have been at a disadvantage for so long. And it's important for people to understand how far back their history goes. And history is not really the best word for it, but it's still applicable to present day. It's still, it's not a lost history. They're still here, and they still identify with everything we find. So it's important to honor that, I think.
Okay, super then. Now, obviously, the archaeology part and the digging part and all that stuff is kind of the fun part of the job. But you're also like an entrepreneur, right? And you're running a business, you're running a company. What's that like for you to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I really don't do that much archaeology anymore. So it's kind of good and bad. Over the last few years, I've worked a lot more on my business. I used to go in the field for 10, 11 hours and then go into the hotel room and work until midnight. And now I'm trying to be protective of my time, and I'm really fascinated and really enjoying like the strategy piece. How can I make this a sustainable workplace for archaeologists, not just women, but for all archaeologists? Especially like a full-time year-round position. There are a lot of archaeologists that are seasonal and only work from spring to fall. So I'm really enjoying that part of the business, and enjoying, seeing us grow, seeing our people happy, seeing people having longevity in their careers, celebrating with our team when they hit milestones. Today, one of our staff was approved to hold a permit. You need a permit to manage a project here in Alberta. She was approved for something bigger and better that she's never done before. And so I really enjoy that, kind of making an impact on these people's lives.
Interesting. What's the biggest challenge as an entrepreneur?
For me personally, is controlling my spending, I'm told. So being on top of the books and really understanding what all the numbers mean and what I can do to affect that. And the second part is I don't have HR in-house, and the people part I find is the hardest part. They always say people are your biggest asset, and you think you can just, take them to dinner or whatever and they'll be happy, but there's so much involved in it. So that is a challenging part. And I'm learning a lot about myself, how to be a better leader, how to communicate better. There's a lot of the people part is the most challenging part, I would say.
So when you got into this as an entrepreneur, did you have any mentors from the entrepreneur side of things and running a business, or did you seek or find wisdom in any books, or tell me about that journey?
I feel like I wish I could redo it, sort of. I mean, you're only where you are because of what you've done. But my parents are both entrepreneurs. I come from a family of business owners, and my grandfather is an entrepreneur, and I've sat with him and listened to a lot of his stories. I remember one of the things he said was that, you have to be present in order for your business to succeed. And I've seen my parents just work their butts off. They really taught me what hard work means, and what hard work can do for you. And also early on in Circle's career, there was an owner of an environmental company, and we would just go for beers every now and again, and I would drill him with questions, and he would give me a lot of advice, so that was really helpful.
So I'm curious, what did your parents do for businesses?
My mother is an accountant and my father is a mechanical engineer. Sort of typical, almost typical Filipino family.
And what about your grandfather?
My grandfather actually did a bunch of things. He started making like cassette tapes and car parts. He's also an engineer, I believe. That's horrible. He made a lot of things. He had a business called S&J Industries, and I remember going to his factory, and there would be 1,000 people there just building parts. And I remember his Christmas parties, how awesome they were. Yeah.
Okay, super. Well, Margarita, every business owner I talk to, always talks about, you're constantly almost on the job, right? You're almost 24/7 working the business or thinking about the business, etc. So tell me a little bit about your work-life balance. First of all, do you have some?
No, I don't think that's a reality. I'm trying to get some,
Yeah.
but I think the truth is that my work is my life. I don't have any children. I consider my staff my children, for lack of a better word. This company is my child. I try to break away from thinking about work in the evenings, but I am always on call. But I am now purposeful about having breaks in my calendar. I have training sessions in the middle of the day, twice a week, plus Saturdays. Pre-COVID, I used to do group boxing quite often at Undercard Boxing Studio, and that was really good for me because it also released stress. I really enjoy punching a bag. Yeah, and I enjoy just spending time with people. I find that when you're so busy, what disappears is the relationships. So I'm going for dinner with a friend tonight. I try to spend time with my grandfather every Sunday. I think especially during COVID, people have come to realize what is really important, and I think it's the people in your life.
Super then. Well, thanks very much, Margarita, for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great.
All right. Super. That was Margarita de Guzman, who is a managing director with Circle CRM Group in Calgary. I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Calgary's podcast on Canada's Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us today.